He's just quoting Deuteronomy, where God set up the judges. That's what's meant by lo mishpat. It means don't mishpat bad. Don't do it wrong. Don't do it bad. So the trick is to look at this through the Bible and not through American Hellenized eyeballs, because that's the problem. It does not mean what people think it means. It means if you're in a court case and there's a Jewish judge judging according to this book, the Torah, don't mess it up. Don't say the person who's righteous is bad and the person who's bad is righteous. The measure that you give that, judgment, that's going to happen to you, which, by the way, is in the Torah. Anybody know where? It was in last week's Torah portion. It said, whatever you judge with will happen to you. Measure for measure. Eye for eye. You know that verse? Hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound. That's what Yeshua is quoting when he says, midan keneged midan, measure for measure. Wound for wound, burn for burn, foot for foot, eye for eye, hand for hand. Does not mean if you cut somebody's hand off, you get your hand cut off. It means if you cut somebody's hand off, you figure out what the monetary judgment is that they will lose, and you give them that money. If you hit somebody's eye and it takes 20% of their sight away, how are you going to then extract that from them? Turn your head just like that. This is going to be tough. Well, I can't hit him there. I got to hit him there. You can't do it. You can't take exactly the same amount of sight away from somebody by hitting them the same way. It's a monetary judgment. Wound for wound, burn for burn, foot for foot, eye for eye. That's what Yeshua is saying when he says measure for measure. He's quoting the Torah. What verse was I in? What verse was I in? What verse was I in? What? What verse was I in? 7 what? What verse? 6? No, that's not right. 6:37. Okay. Don't judge and you won't be judged. Don't condemn and you won't be condemned. Pardon and you'll be pardoned. Pardon and that's what you'll receive. Measure for measure. Give and it will be given to you. Good measure. It goes on. All right, let's go to Luke 12. Luke 12:57. Why do you not even on your own initiative judge what is right? Stop right there. I thought he said don't judge. You can't have it both ways. Either Jesus said don't judge, or he didn't say judge for yourself. Can't you judge on your own initiative? Well, that means he's telling us to judge, right? Does that make sense? You cannot have it both ways. Either he's talking out of both sides of his face and he's a hypocrite, or it doesn't mean don't judge. What verse was that?
12:57.
57, thank you. Why do you not even on your own initiative judge what is righteous? Why aren't you making mishpat tzedek? Why aren't you making a righteous judgment? Can't you do that? Well, then he's telling us to judge. Do you understand what I'm saying? All right, go to John 5. Verse 30. I can do nothing on my own initiative. As I hear, I judge. Oh, Yeshua judges. Yeshua judges. As I hear, I judge. My judgment is just. My mishpat is tzedek. My mishpat is tzedek. Because I don't seek my own will, but the will of him who sent me. I can do nothing on my own initiative. As I hear, I judge. Well, what does he hear? What does he hear? Well, sort of, not the Father. What does he hear? Who does he hear? Chochma, Bina, Etza, Gevura, Da'at, Yirat Adonai, Adonai. The 7 spirits of God. We saw that in Isaiah 11. That's how he was able to judge righteously. We can do the same thing. We can do exactly the same thing. In fact, Yeshua rebuked the Jews because they weren't doing the same thing. So obviously we got to be able to do the same thing, or else it makes no sense. Let's go to John 7:24. Don't judge according to appearance, but judge with mishpat tzedek. Remember it said in Isaiah 11, he will not judge by the sight of his eyes, he will not judge by the hearing of his ears, but he will judge righteously according to those 7 spirits. Here's what he's quoting. That's what he's quoting. He's quoting, that was about me. He's saying, just like Isaiah 11 says, don't judge by your ears, by what your ears hear. Don't judge by what your eyes see. Judge mishpat tzedek, righteously. Judge a righteous judgment. All right, let's go to Acts chapter 10. Verse 42. He ordered us to preach to the people and solemnly to testify that this is the one who has been appointed by God as mishpat of the living and the dead. Well, you know, Christians have known this for 500 years. They paint all these paintings in the Baroque era and the Renaissance era of Jesus on a throne judging everybody. Michelangelo did it in the Sistine Chapel. El Greco did it on this huge painting in a church. It's been done for many years. That's not surprising to believers. But what's surprising to believers is that this comes from the Tanakh. It comes from the Old Testament. It's not some new thing. This is what God set up in the Old Testament. Remember, he said, I will send Hanavi. I will send the prophet. Well, then there's Hadin, the judge. There's Hadin, the judge, Hanavi, the prophet, and Hashofet. I got that wrong. Hadin is also the judge. But Hashofet, you could also say. Hadin or Hashofet is the judge, you could say. And Hanavi is the prophet, and Melech is the king. Well, that's what he's saying here. It's saying here, who's this, Peter preaching? Peter's preaching and he says, God appointed one man to be Hashofet or Hajjaj, Hadin. And that's Yeshua, because he had the 7 spirits of God. Acts chapter 17 basically says the same thing. It calls him basically the man who will judge. Ha-Shofet, the judge. Hadin, 1731. Because he has fixed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness through a man. He'll judge through a man whom he has appointed. So Yeshua was not just a judge, he was the judge. He was not just a prophet, he was the prophet. He was not just a king, he was the king. And this Torah portion sets those 3 in stone. Just engraves them in stone. So here's the trick. How do we do that? How do we do that? So it says in that passage in Deuteronomy, it says, Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. In other words, righteousness is righteousness, run after it. That's what tirdof means. Run after it. Go get it. A long time ago, when I first started studying the Bible, somebody prophesied over me that I was like a leopard. And I was just like a cheetah, like a leopard or a cheetah, just running after the scriptures. They didn't even know what they were saying, by the way. They didn't know that I was Jewish. They didn't know that I was like all into Judaism and I was, looking for Jesus in Judaism. They didn't know any of that. All they knew was from the Spirit to say to me what I was like. And they said, you're like a cheetah running after my word. I was. I still am, not as much, but I still am. But I used to really get after it. You have to find righteousness It's not handed to you on a silver platter. Judgments, what's right and what's wrong, is not handed to you on a silver platter. And it's not handed to you if you just listen to people talk. It's only given to you if you go get it. You gotta go get it in the Torah, in the Tanakh. You don't even get it in the New Testament. You don't get righteous judgments in the New Testament because the New Testament is the end of the book. And it goes, hey, remember back when? That's all the New Testament is. Hey, this is what he meant. Hey, remember when God told us that? That's what it means. That's the end of the book. You got to go back to the beginning and figure out the whole thread of the story, or else you don't get that wisdom. You don't. And that can be in any issue. So people come to me and say, Michael, this person said this and this happened. What do you think? And all of a sudden this whole thread goes and kind of gets puzzle pieces locked together real fast. And it happens that fast. And you know what I say? I don't know. You know why? Because they don't have the vocabulary of what I'm talking about. So I'll just try to give a little tiny little taste and try to somehow relate it to their life or something. That's the best I can do. Because people don't know the vocabulary of that thread of information. So I usually just go, well, yeah, but think about this or something like that. It's about best I can do. So how do we do this? How do we run after and get good decisions? Let's go to 1 Corinthians 15. 1 Corinthians 15. And by the way, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. If you don't want to run after righteousness, if you don't want tzedek tirdof, righteousness, run after it. If you don't want that, you don't have to do it. How many times does it say righteousness there? How many times does it say righteousness there? Answer me. Twice. It doesn't say run after righteousness. It says righteousness. Run after them. Tirdof. Run